Welcome to the Circle Investor Podcast. If this is your first time listening to the show, we talk about all things Central Indiana real estate, business, and beyond. If it's not your first time listening to the show, then welcome back. On today's episode, we talk about
$1.4 million might get you a cardboard box under the I-10 over there. Indianapolis is one of the most affordable metropolises. The right time to buy is now.
Welcome to the Circle Investor Podcast, guys. We are here with another great guest. Today we have Richard Vinson, who is actually on our team, the company that Stuart and I both work for, Intrigue Real Estate and Property Management. Richard is a real estate agent with Intrigue. He is also one of our operations managers on the property management side as well. So a bit of a jack of all trades. So he's worked with leasing. I mean, he's probably leased hundreds of properties at this point over the years. And you're also an investor yourself. You own a rental portfolio, and you are also a husband and a father. So how do you do it all?
It's one day at a time.
Yeah, right. I appreciate you coming on the show and taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with Stuart and I. And yeah, how's your day going?
Going well. I said, I kind of did both sides of the day. I said spent the morning filming some walkthroughs for a new investor client of mine doing a 1031 exchange. So looking to roll over about like 1.4 million and buy a couple higher end multifamilies here in Indianapolis. So nice. I was down in Heron Morton looking at a fourplex down there, over on Central, a really nice place, and then went over to Windsor Park and walked another 4-unit over there, looking at both of those, and got a couple more to do tomorrow.
Yeah, that's very good. So you said there your client's trying to do a 1031 exchange of about 1.4 million, and where's the property they're selling? Is that
out of state in Virginia, his primary residence?
Okay, cool. So he's 1031 exchanging that into some multifamilies in Indiana?
Yes, sir.
Very cool.
So looking to doing some investment here. So this will be he's got a couple other investments out in Virginia where he's from. So looking to expand. I said it's a little bit easier to get into the market over here as opposed to where he's at now. So pricing's a little bit better here. So the 1.4 goes quite a bit farther here than it would out there.
Yeah. I feel like that is one of our maybe our main bread and butter at Intrigue is helping people convert to higher rent to price ratio. So that's I feel like when I speak to, I mean, literally, but right before I came in here, it was like I had a call with a prospective new client that was looking at the Indianapolis market, and he was based, I think, in like Chicagoland somewhere, and he owns some rental properties there. And he's like, yeah, the prices here compared to the rents, I wouldn't be able to cash flow on anything. So I think a lot of people look at our market in Indianapolis as just having that better rent to price ratio.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a common theme on almost like every single investor call that I get on, because they say whether they're like in California, especially like California pricing, like 1.4 million might get you a cardboard box under the I-10 over there. It doesn't go very far out there, or like in Washington, like Seattle markets or Portland or Texas. I mean, Indianapolis is one of the most affordable metropolises across the U.S. I said that we kind of get spoiled here. As much as property values have appreciated over the last 10 years, we're still well below. I said in some of those other crazy markets, like you were saying in Chicago or any other major cities. So that I think it's a great entry level market for any investor, especially first timers just looking to get into it. Because there's a pretty low ceiling for purchase price right now, so you can get into some nice multifamily for under 200. So that's a rarity in like a large city like ours is.
Yeah.
For those listeners who aren't real estate experts or experienced investors, could you two talk about a brief explanation about what a 1031 exchange is and what the benefits are and how someone might like start looking into that?
Yeah.
Cool. You want to take that away?
Yeah. You can go first. Yeah. If you leave anything to add.
So it's a tax deferred method. So if you sell a residence that you own, that would be normally subject to capital gains taxes. So Like in this case, I said, sorry, I misspoke earlier. It wasn't his primary residence. It was like a inherited property that he hasn't from his parents that passed away. So that it wasn't his primary residence. So if you like buy a property and it's not your primary residence, you sell it subject to capital gains taxes. But if you roll those funds over into a 1031 exchange, essentially the proceeds from the sale of that property go into an escrow account handled by a 1031 agent, and those funds are set aside, and you have to purchase. You can buy multiples. So if you sell like one large building like this guy's doing at 1.4 million, as long as you spend those funds into one or more properties, then those funds are subject to capital gains taxes. So you're kind of saving yourself.
Yeah, you defer the taxes. Like if that property you bought through the 1031 exchange, if you turn around and sell that, you're still subject to to the same capital gains taxes that you would have paid. But it basically allows you to convert real estate assets for other real estate assets without having to pay, end up paying a lot extra in taxes.
There's a timer on it, isn't there? Like when you sell the property?
Yeah, I want to say it's 80 days.
For those, because there's like three different. There's like the identify period. Once you sell a property, you have. I thought it was might be 90 days.
Yeah.
Because you can also do like new construction, so that kind of helps with that. So if you identify if it's a proposed build, you can still purchase that property. So you still would fall within that like 90-day identifying. Or sorry, no, because the purchase window starts first. I think you have like maybe it's 80 days for the purchase period, and then 120 or something for the closing of the sale. So yeah, there is a timed so that you like once you sell the property, that once those funds are dispersed into that account for the 1031 exchange, you have a set period of time. I said just don't quote me on the time limit. I would consult with a professional on that, but yeah. So you have a set amount of time to identify, and then a set amount of time to close on those properties that you're rolling those funds over to purchase.
Yeah. I had someone in my family reach out to me recently about it, and I said, I know a couple people who might be able to fill you in on more details about what a 1031 exchange entails.
Yeah, First American Title also has like First American Exchange. That's the like two of the three 1031 exchanges that I've helped facilitate. I've been through them. They've been great. So they can handle all that stuff. And then it's kind of nice being in the same, if we use First American Title for the purchase as well, so they can coordinate internally on those purchases, because they take care of all the escrow funds.
Yeah. So we were both wrong. I think I said 80 days. I looked it up on ChatGPT because I was like, I feel like if I was listening to this podcast, I'd be like, come on, I need to know.
You need to run Jamie that like Joe Rogan has to fact check stuff.
Yeah, one of us has to be Jamie. So I think where I got 80 days from, it's the total exchange period is 180 days. But the identification period is 45 days, which is actually, because I remember every 1031 exchange I've done where, I've only done it on the buyer side where actually that's not true. I think I've had it one time where I helped a seller list a house that they were going to then do an exchange on. But most of the time it's been on the buyer side. And I remember that window is always it feels very tight. Like they go under contract, but I think I got to look at the details because
you can have more. You don't have to close on all the properties that you identify. So there's like a fixed number. I think it's like 5 maybe or something. There's a fixed number of identified properties, and then say you you have like some backup plans in case one of them ends up falling out of contract or something. So you can say these are the 10 properties that I've identified that I'm interested in purchasing, but you don't have to close on all of those.
Yeah, you can identify up to 3 properties, it says. So 3 property rule. More than 3 properties if their total fair market value doesn't exceed 200% of the sold property's value. So it's like if you're going to do a 1031 exchange, it is a good idea to identify as many properties as you can, because what we know from working in real estate is like not every deal works out. So you need to have like a plan B and a plan C. But that 45-day identification period, I think this is significant. That starts the day after the sale of your relinquished property closes. So I think that's why, because I think we both had kind of that same time period in our head of like somewhere between 60 and 80 days, because that's really how long you have to kind of find the property. Because if you think about from the time they go under contract, so that's when they like kind of, they know they're probably selling this property, they can list it. So that 45 days doesn't really start until they close, which is actually, 30 to 45 days after they go under contract to sell. So really, I think from the time you're selling your property that's being relinquished, you actually have more like anywhere between 70 and 90 days.
So your best bet is to reach out to an agent right then and there,
Yeah.
and start planning in advance before the transaction actually happens.
And a lot of people do. I think that's generally people reach out to us before they even list their property that they're going to sell. They say, I'm thinking about doing a 1031 exchange, and they want to make sure they kind of have their preliminary conversations started in the market they're trying to invest in.
Yep, that's what this client did. So once he was in the process of talking to the listing agent out there in Virginia and getting the property listed for sale, so that's when he reached out to me, and so it's when we set up those searches. And we kind of talked about what his investment plan was and what areas to look in. So we kind of honed that in and set up those searches through the MLS, so we could kind of start pre-vetting properties. And then once he went under, so he just went under contract into last week. So that's when he was like, okay, let's kick this up a notch. Let's start going filming some walkthroughs. Let's get some properties lined up and whittling this list down, because right now he's got probably 25, 30 properties on the short list right now that we're looking through. So we're kind of going through and talking them through one at a time and figuring out which ones would be the best fit. Because the one thing about 1031 exchanges, you can't use those funds for renovations on a property. So anything, so it has to be the purchase, it has to all go towards the purchase price of the property. So trying to find stuff that's close to or at a turnkey. This is so that because he does have some extra slush funds outside, some liquid cash to use for some renovations, but trying to keep that to a minimum.
Yeah.
So you can't use those funds for renovating the property. It just has to be for the purchase price.
Well, luckily, with 1.4 million, you should be able to find some pretty turnkey properties. But then the question is just, I'm sure on that investor's mind is just, well, what kind of cash flow ratio can I get? Because generally, the more turnkey, the more it can be a little bit hard to find that good cash flow ratio, especially if you're in a B or an A class kind of area.
Yep, and those were all we're looking at, A's and B's. So obviously, I was in Heron Morton and Windsor Park, two of the more premier neighborhoods in Indianapolis. So I said higher purchase price, but higher rent. So obviously that the rent to purchase price ratio is going to be not quite as high as in those more transitionary neighborhoods, your C classes, the more up and coming places like Riverside or down in Twin Air. But so that still solid return numbers.
Yeah. Should we tell people about kind of the more the inside baseball nuance of what 1031 exchanges sort of mean to listing agents? So I teased it. I'll fulfill it. So I always say it's an interesting thing. When you come with a 1031 exchange, that sort of effect that happens because I feel like a agent, almost every agent understands when somebody comes with a 1031 exchange, especially as an out-of-state investor. Out-of-state investors, if you just average, if you go on average, they kind of come with this reputation of they're not emotionally tied to the purchase at all. It's sort of we might go under contract, but there's just there's no guarantees. What are the odds they could end up kind of walking on the sale? So it is kind of an interesting thing that the 1031 exchange does, that it gives I feel like it gives the listing agent and, via the listing agent, it gives the seller more security that, hey, we're actually going to make it to closing on this transaction because this person's fulfilling a 1031 exchange. So it's almost like you have more skin in the game than just, I saw this property and I just felt like putting an offer in on it. So.
Yeah, I feel like it's a more secure offer on a couple different levels because like you said, they are on a time crunch, like so that to identify those properties, they got to close on it, or else they're going to lose out on that tax break. So on that end too, and then it's also it's equivalent to cash purchase, obviously, so that's not subject to underwriting guidelines, and you don't have to worry about funding falling through, which is one of the most common reasons why sales fall through, is because underwriting falls through and they can't get approved for the loan, so you don't have to worry about them coming through and finding out that they a regular buyer that was using financing lied about their income on the pre-approval or whatever, and they come to find out that they have more debt than they said they did, and there's all kinds of different reasons why that would fall through, but so it's more of a secure offer on that front too. So I feel like if on the selling side, whenever I get an offer from somebody that's using a 1031 exchange, just so like you said, I can kind of feel a lot more secure. I feel that it's or be more of a rarity if those fall through, unless you got through the inspection period and they found some large items that we didn't pick up on, like some foundation or issues or something that wasn't revealed when we were walking through the property.
Yeah. And I do feel like that's because the other side of that coin is, okay, that's great that your offer it will be appealing to sellers because they have some security that you've got that time crunch, that skin in the game, and that really secure method of financing. But then the downside, one way to look at that as a buyer is like, well, then do I lose some of my negotiation leverage throughout the contract? Because now the seller kind of understands that I'm locked in. And I think there is some truth to that you might kind of lose some of that power. It doesn't mean that a seller is just going to automatically say no to every reasonable request that you make if major stuff comes up on the inspection report. But I do think it's a good idea, like if you're shopping for a 1031, if you're doing a 1031 exchange property, you're shopping for that property, like use that as make sure that you've if you're doing it from out of state, you get a very thorough video walkthrough. You have a pretty good idea that you are buying something. It's all the more reason to go after something turnkey, as opposed to, like, I wouldn't go into it the way some investors go into purchases, where it's like, oh, let's just get an offer in and then we'll figure it out on due diligence, like, because you might not be able to get much done like during due diligence.
You have to cast a much wider net. Keeping your agent busy. You said putting multiple properties under contract and then trying to see what washes out in the due diligence period.
Right. And it doesn't, I mean, that identification period doesn't mean that you can't ever pull out of a sale. Like, you can. You probably get at least a couple of tries, or you can pull out and get something else under contract. Yeah.
Does that due diligence period come with the same things that like if I was purchasing a home for myself, like I'm going to want a third party inspection done to identify the issues that you said like could pop up, like a foundation issue or something structural?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I always advocate for using a good inspection company to go through, because while I have a pretty trained eye, so having walked hundreds of homes by now, I get pretty good at identifying issues. Like if I'm in a basement and you see some cracks in the foundation, or like you said, if you kind of get to the side of it, you can see a bow in the foundation wall, or look up and some of those, like you're walking the main floor and you can feel like sags in the floor, and you go down there and there's cracked like floor joists or whatever. So I'm pretty good at picking up on that stuff, but I'm by no means an absolute like expert. End of the day, I'm not the be all end all. So I definitely always advocate for using an inspector to come through, and somebody that's trained to catch all those issues. And then it's also obviously, like as Ryan was saying, then that gives you more leverage, having an inspection done, so you can go back to the seller and either request those repairs be made prior to closing, or adjust that purchase price to accommodate for those items that are going to have to be addressed.
Well, yeah, one of the questions that we talked about on a previous episode, but I think it would be great to hear you guys kind of go back and forth with it too, is if you have a first-time investor who's got $40,000 that they want to spend on their first rental, where do you suggest that they start?
Like $40,000 in equity, we're looking to like use that as like down payment towards a property.
Yeah, $40,000 in cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a decent starting point. So that's enough for usually your 80-20 conventional. So I think that gets you $200,000. So some that buy some solid. So with only 40 grand in cash, I'd probably try to stick with something that's turnkey, because obviously that isn't going to leave you much room for cash on hand for needed repairs after closing, and or something that's potentially like already tenant occupied. So I said, 200, like if you're able to leverage that 40 grand into doing a $200,000 conventional loan, so you can find some said again some of those like solid, more like looking in those like C to like like C plus to like C minus type neighborhoods that are more up and coming emergent neighborhoods. Find some multifamily. You can buy a 2-1, 3-1 duplex in that price range for like 150, 180. That's fairly turnkey. So that would probably be my advice on which way to steer them. Because then obviously you're going to maximize your potential for cash flow when you have multiple units, so multiple tenants paying. Easier to cash flow on as opposed to buying single family. So that's the direction I would steer them.
Because it's such a niche, Indianapolis focused podcast, could you name a couple neighborhoods that are that fit that bill right now?
Yeah, I said that Riverside's an area that's seen a ton of reinvestment. So with that Indy 11 like soccer stadium going in over there's been a lot of Arbor Homes done a bunch of new build communities over there. That's really pushed that neighborhood from I would say probably like 5 years ago, before all this stuff was going on, it had been more of like a D-class neighborhood. It wasn't the greatest. It's adjacent to Hawville over there. It wasn't like the greatest part of town, but with all that reinvestment going on over there, I've seen a lot of investors jumping in that area, bringing the whole neighborhood up with it. And it's it's a, right now I'd call it like probably a C with some C plus upside, with potential to break into that B class neighborhood within the next, if it continues on its current path, up to that go breaking into like a B minus type of neighborhood. That place is great. Said Twin Air neighborhood's an area that's seen a ton of reinvestment. With that criminal justice center that went in over there, I have a lot of investors that have bought in over there. Some of your other like east side neighborhoods like Little Flower is another great area. Some of those areas like adjacent to Fountain Square. So like as Fountain Square really gentrified, and it's really hard to find anything in Fountain Square now. It's going to cash flow just because property values have risen so much, because the Two Chicks and a Hammer kind of ruined that for a future investor.
Yeah.
It kind of got oversaturated.
The word is out. Yeah. Same with Bates Hendricks.
So yeah, that area, it's a lot harder to find, potential cash flow in those areas. But some of those more adjacent neighborhoods like Fountain Square South, so now it's like, even like the neighborhoods around it are just like copying it now. Like obviously you have like Fountain Square East and like Fountain Square South. It's just like all those areas around there that you're still close enough to Fountain Square to identify as Fountain Square-ish. So
yeah. East Fountain Square, South Fountain Square. I do see a lot of people still investing in those spots for cash flow. I have a duplex in East Fountain Square.
It's an interesting parallel between the real estate market and both of your careers, because if I'm not mistaken, you guys both have roots in logistics, right? And there's, I think a lot of people know at this point that Indianapolis is historically a logistic heavy, and then these neighborhoods that you're describing, like around the soccer stadium and Back Nine Golf, I think is kind of in that area too, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. They kind of saw this, they saw this big surge of investment from the logistics companies, and then over the course of 40 or 50 years, as these neighborhoods kind of got a little more run down and now revitalizing, there's real estate focus in those areas too.
Yep, me and Ryan knew each other in our previous life on the logistics side of things.
I meant to include that as part of your intro. I knew Richard before either of us knew we'd be working in real estate. We were both phone monkeys together in the logistics world. Yeah, that was fun times.
Yeah, I don't miss it at all. I don't miss the 3 a.m. phone calls from angry truck drivers sitting at Driscoll Strawberry in like Oxnard, California, because there's no fruit in the warehouse, or they've been waiting for 8 hours and they're angry, and it's like I'm bleary eyed at like 3 a.m. trying to explain to them that obviously like our customer is not in the office right now, so just make sure the receiver is stamping your bills for your check-in time so we can pay you, bill the customer for detention, but I can get you $40 an hour for that detention, but outside of that, there's really not a whole. I can't call them and force them to skip you in the line.
Yeah.
If there's no fruit, there's no fruit.
Yeah, it's fun, man. You just talking about that, it's like I feel like you just woke up a part of me that was like dormant. Like it's like, oh man, I'm just like having flashbacks to.
You were like in the sales side of it, or
well, we were kind of in the same position when I first worked for I worked on the ops coordinator. I think was like my first job title there, but then I moved into pricing and procurement because I working with Josh because I was tired of talking to truck drivers on the phone, so I was like, hey, I'm pretty good at spreadsheets. Like, I literally I think I got him to like make a position for me because I just wanted to I just wanted to do analytics and strategy stuff instead of having it be on the phone. But it's kind of funny the amount of like parallels. Like I feel like with that job and now instead of brokering like a relationship between a Walmart and a truck driver, like it's a relationship between a property owner and a tenant, tenant who's like got a leak under their sink, and we're just trying to make everybody happy in the situation.
Still playing the middleman.
Yeah brokering is brokering at the end of the day.
The truck driver in that scenario is the tenant who shakes the P-trap under the sink and it's like it won't stop leaking, right? But it's dripping because you're shaking it every time you try to take a picture of it.
Yeah, that's a very specific example. Well, it's almost like that's something we just dealt with.
It's recent. It's recent and relevant trauma, I think.
Yeah, I don't ever first. Right after I got into real estate, I did have a couple of people that from like Blue Ribbon that had gone on and done other things that try to recruit me back into the logistics world, and I said have no desire to go back to that. Once you get a taste of the 1030 or the 1099 life, I don't know if I could ever go back into an office job.
It's a perfect segue actually into the next question on our list, and that is if you have a weekend, which I know is rare in our industry, but if you have a weekend that's totally free and you have no plans, how are you going to spend your weekend?
What time isn't taken up by this is usually taken up by the kids. So that I have a 2-year-old and a 7-year-old at home, so they need constant entertainment. So we're usually trying to get out. If it's nice outside, we're trying to get outdoors and relax a little bit. But I see probably taking them to the park or going and trying to find something fun to do, like going to they really like to go to Brownsburg to that Oinking Acres. They love going out there. There's like pigs and farm animals, and now they have like a kitten shack where they have they're using it to adopt cat. Like the local humane society will bring cats out there.
I've been there.
Oh yeah.
Realtor Ryan did a video. We promoted it on my Instagram.
It's a really cool place. Yeah, so you can go in there, and it's it's a rescue place for pigs and and other farm animals, and so they'll take them out there and give them a good life. And you can go in there, when you go into pay your admission, you can buy snacks to feed the pigs, and you can go around and feed all the animals. They have exotic birds and horses and all kinds of other farm animals out there, and you just wander around. And
perfect timing on that actually, because we are going out to the west side this weekend to Greencastle to visit my in-laws, and then we're coming back into town, the Avon Brownsburg area. And we were going to be looking for something to do on Saturday afternoon. So I'm really glad this came up because
stop by Oinking Acres. Yeah, your son probably loved that place.
Yeah,
it was really cool. They had a lot of cool animals to see, and I feel like they just blow kids, toddlers and little kids. It just blows their mind to see all these different animals they don't see every day. There was an angry peacock when we were there. It was I don't know, maybe it wasn't a peacock. It was some kind of bird that it wasn't a chicken or a rooster, but it was
gnarly looking turkey that hangs out in the barn, was it?
Because there was a turkey that was following us around, and he was kind of intimidating, but he wasn't mean.
Yeah, I said he looks gnarly, but yeah, I've never seen him attack anybody. He just wanders around. He's just free ranging around in the barn over there, and like I said, it's a little you're not used to just seeing free range turkeys walking around.
Yeah,
but it's wild turkeys are pretty mean. You don't want to try to pet a wild turkey, but I wouldn't recommend that.
There was just one bird that they had it in kind of the the closed off pen area, and they were like, yeah, he's kind of an asshole. It was like if you get too close, he would like, just like, "Ah."
So they do have like signage and stuff because like some of the pigs aren't like cool with like being pet, and like some of them like they're like so fat like they like can't see very well. So they always say like don't feed them by hand because they like might accidentally bite your hand by accident because they can't see.
They're blind.
Yeah,
We've been to the state fair. He really enjoyed that, the animal barns, and we've been to some apple orchards where they've got sort of small scale petting zoos, and he was a big fan of that. So
yeah, we make the circuits every year to the pumpkin patch and the apple orchards, and also like the like cool little like kid play areas and stuff. And one of the things like my son is like super brazen. So was my daughter when she was that age. Where they have like the stacked up like hay bales, and they're just like climbing and climbing. And they're like 30 feet off the ground. You're like,
yeah. They got like a pyramid like of hay bales at have you guys been to Tuttle's? Like Tuttle's Orchard. It's like not. I think it's Greenfield, like out kind of Greenfield direction. But yeah, we went down there a few weeks ago. That's where we got Boone picked out a pumpkin.
Nice.
There.
That's the east side, right?
Yeah, it's like it's out east.
Yeah, I'm thinking I have been there before. Do they have like little tracks where kids can like ride little trikes around? And
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I've been there.
Yeah, they've got like they've got a pretty big like kids area and stuff. They had this year. They had I'd never seen it before. They had like a corn pit. It was like it was all it was like dried, like popcorn kernel kind of corn, and it was like a massive like something you'd think of as like a big sand pit, but like instead of sand, it was like corn, and like just the sensory of like kids were like in there just like swimming in the corn, and like it was pretty cool.
yeah, they like play like tractors and bulldozers and stuff in there.
Yeah,
so
they had like toys and stuff in there. But it was nice because it's like better than sand, because sand, the kid comes out and like they've got sand everywhere, but the corn is like it's big enough that like it doesn't stay with them.
Yeah, probably still gets in your shoes.
It does, but it's like you can dump it out.
Yeah, it's a lot less invasive than the sand is.
Well, that's appropriate. There's a podcast about Central Indiana real estate, and now we're talking about corn mazes and corn pits.
Yeah.
So.
lots of like petting zoo type locations around Indianapolis too for fun stuff to do on the weekends, whether it's a rescue or the state fair or something like that. There's always some cool animals that you can take your kids to go see.
Yeah, my kids love the state fair. We're like we always walk over there because we're right there on Fall Creek Parkway, so it's like a 3-minute walk over there. I just have to like set the now my daughter is like old enough though now that like every day she's like, "We're going to the fair today, Dad." I'm like, I don't want to pay the $30 or the like $50 gate fee for every single day to go in there and buy overpriced food. But we'll keep it to twice maybe. On the the like $2 Tuesdays we usually go both of those times, and then like one like weekend or whatever my cousins will come up and we'll go there for like a full day or whatever with his kids, hang out, eat a whole bunch of terrible for you fried food, but it's delicious though.
Yeah, that's the day to just go all out and just break the diet. We've got some friends who live off of Winthrop, and so we walk over there. We drive to their house and walk over there. Of course, you get the most consistent and reliable weather in the summer when they have the state fair, but we've been there one day the last couple of years, and it's just been brutal, like the weather. You got to duck inside every chance you get.
Yeah, this year I think when we went this year we had like one really really nice day that we went over there. It's been like a weird up and down. I don't feel like the summer was too terribly brutally hot this year, but yeah, usually it's the brutally hot and you're just out there just baking in the sun, and you're like I'll pay $5 for another bottle of water right now.
And you just missed the trolley, so you have to walk halfway around to get to like the kid village.
It is a huge place too. So if you're walking everywhere, and then trying to keep track of a 2-year-old at the same time and a 7-year-old from wandering off, it's always a stressful experience. But
something I didn't realize until I actually had a 3-year-old is like how fast they are. Like how
Yeah.
Like I was like, I mean, because it's just like I feel like Boone went from like learning to walk to like, it just happened so fast. Like how it's like I have to like catch him. Like he can move so quick when he wants to.
You got to keep your grass cut a little bit taller in the backyard where you play. That way, like, it kind of slows them down a little bit.
Because they got to get their knees up really high.
Right. Well, I thought the article that I found for us for today, you obviously don't have to have pre-read the article, but I think that might be a good one for us to cover. It's heavy real estate focus. It was an article about just the Indianapolis home market, and I thought I pulled some interesting facts from it. So I'd love to get your guys' take as agents in Indianapolis.
So this is one from Wish TV.
Yeah, just generally about the market and how it's debatably the best time in 5 or 6 years to buy a house right now because the rates are fluctuating, coming down a little bit. One of the interesting facts I read that there was a 24% increase in available homes from September of last year to now. And also that the median price was it actually decreased by almost 2% since September of last year.
Yep, I say definitely. I'm sure you've seen the same thing with those interest rates starting to come back down because they fell below 6% for the first time since November of it was 3 years ago, I believe it was.
It feels like it's
2022 maybe.
Years. Yeah.
So it's some people crawling out of the woodwork that have been kind of in the holding period. Like I said, my always rebuttal to that's always that, while I guess maybe with this past year being a rare exception where median home price fell slightly, but usually with if it's you're out waiting, if you're waiting for those sub 3 interest rates are never coming back ever again unless there's some kind of crazy world disaster or something that would push them back down to COVID. I just don't ever see sub 3 ever coming back ever again. That was a weird, rare, once in a lifetime occurrence. But now they're starting to dwindle back down towards that. For a long time, that 5.5%, 6% was pretty average for a long time. So kind of dwindling back down to those rates again. But the longer you wait, obviously, interest rates might come down a little bit, but in that time that you're waiting, obviously those home prices are going to keep going up. So whatever savings you're going to make on, waiting it out for another year for maybe another quarter to maybe a half a point drop in those interest rates, it's going to be offset by the purchase price going up. So that was the adage that, the right time to buy is now. That's always pretty true.
That's almost becoming a meme of our industry a little bit, is hey, how come every time I ask a real estate agent is now a good time to buy, somehow the answer is yes. It's to be fair, we've been in a seller's market since before 2020. It was already COVID hit and sent it way into a seller's market, but it's been the past 6 years of just, and now we're creeping back towards neutral. So I think you could make an argument that okay, it's relatively easier to buy now than it was in 2020, 2021. You're going to have more options. There's more inventory. But people always like to make it about price and interest rates. And it's just kind of the price is the price and the interest rate is the interest rate. You're buying an appreciating asset. So just do that once you can. And, stop just spending all your money on rent and, turn, because I've worked with a lot. I'm never going to forget working with first time home buyers in 2021 and watching them say no to a $300,000 4-bedroom house in Fishers, Indiana, and just being I don't know. I think something better will come along. This one doesn't fit our couch that well. And then, fast forward a year and now that house is the house next door to that house is listed with the same layout for $380. And it's you can't outsave the market. That's what I tell people. Even you're the most valuable person at the company you work for, and you're getting raises every year. You're getting promoted. You're not outsaving at the highest levels of appreciation. You're definitely not outsaving the market. You might be kind of running in parallel with the market at the lowest levels of appreciation. But for most people, whatever home you can afford today, chances are it's not going to get, your options aren't going to get a lot better if you wait a year.
We got lucky and kind of fell into one of those like once in a lifetime 3% rates in a good neighborhood. But now we're in a weird spot where we just had an HOA meeting this week where the board and most of the neighborhood wants to cap rentals where we are now, which I can see. Someone actually came down from Fisher's with some of the material that they've been tossing around in Fisher's and Carmel about rental caps.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. And
sorry we did that to you.
And it was someone who lives up on the north side and came down because they own a rental in our neighborhood. And we were trying to balance between, like, yeah, I understand where someone's coming from. If they live next door in a suburb neighborhood, if they live next door to a rental, there can be some issues with that. But, you know, who's to say if 10 or 15 years from now we want to move and turn our house into a rental rather than selling it? So it's kind of a weird, short-sighted decision I think we're making right now.
Well, the city of Fishers and the city of Carmel just did it.
Yeah.
Which it is crazy. I mean, I think we talked about this on our last ops call. This ordinance they're passing where you have to register your rental, and they're not going to allow more than 10% of single family homes to be rentals, which kind of sounds like a nice policy on its face for like the reason you said. It's like I think people have this impression like, oh, if our neighborhood is like half rentals, then there's going to be this, nobody's going to take care of their property. It's just going to be the neighborhood's going to go downhill. But I mean, I'll tell you, I've driving around my neighborhood, the problem houses, I know for a fact every problem house, like we have this one house in our neighborhood where we're clearly struggling with hoarding, and like they open the garage and it's just like packed to the brim. That's a homeowner. They have a mortgage. Either we have another house where their grass is always overgrown and like there's the algae growing on the siding that they need to do something about. Like that's a homeowner. I mean, they're going through a lot of stuff in their personal life. Like we've talked to them, and like I know, I understand the reasons, and so it's like these are just people at the end of the day. Like you can't judge people too harshly for what's happening with their property, but like people have this impression that like home ownership is what fixes like neglected properties, and the reality is like if what fixes neglected properties is value growth in the area, and that's generated from access to amenities like the developments you were talking about, like Indy 11 and all that. It's not the ratio of rentals to private households, and because I've seen rental properties that are maintained meticulously because the owner of the property cares about how their property does, and they want their the people leasing it to continue wanting to live there.
So I was going to say, I said that I feel like it would almost be the opposite of that, because you have more motivation to maintain the property at a higher level being a rental, just because it's like that. The main goal of owning a rental is having a tenant in place that's going to pay rent. Like if it's in it's in disuse and it's disheveled and doesn't look great, it's not going to show well, and you're not going to have tenants in there. And if you do have tenants in there, they're not going to want to stay if the house is falling apart. Like nobody wants to, live in a trap house, so that they're going to, much more motivated to upkeep the property. So yeah, that's because I kind of went through had the exact same conversation this morning, because one of my clients is in his neighborhood. They had a HOA. It's getting ready to come to vote on doing the same thing where capping rentals in the neighborhood, and adding like a required like waiting period of like 3 years. You have to own the property for 3 years, and then you can get on the wait list. And it's by like seniority, who's owned the house the longest, who's going to be on the top of that list if it's a rental. Yeah. And luckily he's in a pretty good position where the tenant that I placed in that property signed a 2-year lease. So he'll be, at least if the, worst case scenario, if that tenant doesn't renew, it'll be like at like 2 years and like 9 months that he's owned the property at the end of his current lease. And then there's like the proposed structure for that has like a 90-day period where if it's an existing rental and you don't have if it's vacant for more than 90 days, then you get dropped off of the list, which is kind of like crazy. It's like that would
90-day vacancy. Yeah. That's interesting, because I was going to say a lot of times places that or when HOAs roll it out, or even when the city level rolls it out, it's usually they will kind of have a clause in there that grandfathers in any existing rentals are allowed to keep existing even if they have a turnover. But yeah, I refer to what the city of Fishers and the city of Carmel is doing right now with rentals. It's just a government imposed monopoly. Like that's what I refer to it as, because anybody that has a rental there now or who gets to be a part of that 10%, like all you're doing is you're just driving up the demand. You're limiting supply, and the demand is going to stay what it is. So you're just driving up the price that they can charge for those rentals, and by not allowing the market to exist in the way that it should.
Yeah, because I think we had that conversation like right when they first like rolled that out, where I don't really see eye to eye with their reasoning on that. Because they said if their main goal was to keep housing affordable, like not everybody's in a position to buy. So like that, if you're capping rentals, they said you're capping the availability of rentals, because obviously over time, even though you're grandfathering all those existing ones, over time when they sell, the permit doesn't transfer with the sale of the property. So it's going to end up, becoming, if it gets sold to somebody else that can't use it as a rental, even if it was previously a rental, so that the supply is going to keep dwindling down. And so obviously as supply dwindles down, pricing and demand is going to go up. So you're only going to make the cost of living more expensive for non-homeowners. So you're kind of going to be driving out a certain population, a certain sector of the population from those areas. So I don't really follow their reasoning at all.
Oh, I'm convinced that the people that are really behind it, that lobbied the hardest for it, I bet they all own rentals in Carmel and Fishers. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
That's what I was telling my client that has that vote on the table right now. He's like, well, I don't know if I should vote yes or no. I was like, because I guess voting yes could potentially play into your own interests, because if you're able to keep it as a rental and they cap any new rentals from coming in, then obviously you're going to be cornering the market. There's going to be less competition in the neighborhood, so that could potentially benefit you. But like I said, if it on the off chance that your tenant doesn't renew and you do have that vacancy that pops up like right before that 3-year period pops up, if we don't get it leased out in time or whatever, and he ends up like you'd be kind of stuck, because then obviously he lives in California, so he's not going to live in it. So we just have to sell it off and buy something in a non rent controlled area.
Yeah, it takes away the market's, like the market player's ability to corner the market when the government just steps in and does it for them.
I mean, I think there are definitely instances when government regulation is important. I think there's even certain industries that maybe the government should control. So I'm not a total capitalist pig free market kind of person, but I think there's certain cases where you can't have like a quasi free market, like where it's just this manipulated free market, because then it's just a government just creates winners and losers. Yeah, we appreciate you coming in, Richard. Do you have anything you want to promote? How can people get in contact with you? What's your do you have any social media handles? Where should people find you?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a Luddite on that end. I said I'm on Facebook, but that's about the extent of it. I don't really do much social media content producing, but so that you can always find my information on our company page if you're interested in getting into the Indianapolis investment market, or if you have a property that you need some property management for, you can always reach me through there.
What's your email if people want to shoot you an email?
Just my first name, Richard @intriguepm.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming in.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was good. I said it was a lot smoother, so I didn't even realize we'd already been going for like 50 minutes already. It went by really fast.
It does.
I know. Time flies when you get into some good conversations. It's just it goes by so quick.
Yeah, I was blessed with the gift of gab, so that's I can talk forever.
If you enjoyed the episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and like the episode and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. That really helps us out.
If you think someone that you know could benefit from hearing the things that we talked about on today's episode, please share it with them.
You can check out our full library of episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have any suggestions for the show, like who we should interview or a topic we should discuss, please email us at circleinvestorpod@gmail.com.
That's it for today, but join us right back here next week for another episode of the Circle Investor Podcast.